Good evening, welcome, and thank you. Thank you for your support and commitment to junior achievement. I must offer another big thank you to all of the people who made tonight come together. When we got the call from Northlands last night at 5 o'clock, I barely had time to panic before everybody jumped into action. So thank you to Anne and her team from CEO Events for the fast thinking and long hours. Thank you to Neil and his team at Frischkorn Media Co., who had the AV almost completely set up at Northlands when we gave them the news. Thank you to the JA staff, who dropped all of their plans last night, called in their family and friends, and stayed until the wee hours of the morning, doing anything and everything to help. Thank you to the board members who got on the phones this morning to make sure that everyone knew of the venue change. And lastly, thank you to Shaw for working your magic to make sure that this could come together. I often talk about how much junior achievement has taught the students, but turns out JA continues to teach long after the programs are over, because we learned a lot today about adapting to change and thinking on the fly. I have to say, though, it's pretty surreal to be up here. You see, I was up here 18 years ago as a recent graduate of the JA Company program. I had been awarded several honors locally and then had gone on to be named Most Valuable Achiever in Canada. I stood up here and thanked former President Gerald Ford for speaking at the event. My memories from that night are a bit hazy, but there are a few that have stuck with me. One was how upset I was as I sat at the head table and listened to Gerald Ford speak. In his speech, he talked about how the problem with today's youth was that so many of them were being raised by single parents, and children raised by single parents didn't have a chance at a good future. He says, "Not like this girl over here," as he points to me. What he didn't know was that I had spent a portion of my life raised by a single parent. So I didn't think too highly of what he had to say. So when I got up to thank him and talk about my time in the program, I made sure to change my speech. I added in that I, this girl up here he had just boasted about, was in fact raised by a single mom. Yes, that was me, 18 years old, and discreetly telling a former president that he was wrong in front of 1,500 people. You see, JA taught me and every other person in my program that you need to speak up, that sitting back isn't an option if you intend to succeed as a leader. That night, for many reasons, was life-changing, but more than anything, my time in the program was life-changing. Today, I'm a successful entrepreneur, married to an entrepreneur, and from the looks of it, raising two entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur means betting on yourself, putting not only your own livelihood at risk, but also the livelihoods of your employees, and grabbing them in your hands and taking a leap. The first leap is the hardest. Each success under your belt, and even each failure, makes the next leap that much easier. I was lucky to have my first leap happen within the safe confines of the JA Company program. I didn't have mouths to feed or a mortgage to pay. My biggest risk was a bruised ego and the $10 I spent on the initial share purchase. I poured my heart and soul into a company that made these little babies. Yes, that is a bear-shaped piggy bank. The youth of today are clearly far more creative. When the program was over, I knew it had been an amazing learning experience, but even I didn't know how big of an impression it had left on me. Looking back at my career now, I can see how the decisions I made that led me here were shaped by my time in JA. I was able to recognize the entrepreneur in myself and begin pursuing that path very early on. I may have ended up here in the end, but I really feel that the path would have been a far more meandering path. Now, not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur, and the goal of the company program is not to turn a bunch of people into entrepreneurs. It's simply to give the participants a taste of what that might look like, giving them skills in teamwork, innovation, creative thinking, goal setting, and resiliency, all things that can be carried forward into any career. I was lucky enough to be touched by the JA Company program, but back then it was the only program offered by JA, and its reach was approximately only 100 students. As you saw tonight, JA has grown its company program significantly, but it has also developed an in-class program that allows us to reach over 25,000 kids annually between grades 3 and 12 in Northern Alberta. I have volunteered to teach the school program several times a year for the last few years. I'm always so impressed with the impact that 4 hours in the classroom can make. Just last month, I was teaching a grade 5 class. In the first hour, we talked about what types of jobs the students might want and how much they thought they should be paid for those jobs. The consensus around the room was that $25 an hour was really the minimum, because how would you afford what you wanted? So then we turn and we get to hour 4, where I ask them to consider, if you're going to start a business, what are the considerations you have to think through? The one company group that remembered that they had to decide what to pay their employees felt that $2 an hour really was quite reasonable. When I reminded them of their earlier thoughts, we had quite an interesting discussion about finding the happy medium between $2 and $25. I can't tell you how many aha moments I have witnessed in those classrooms. When it comes to work readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship, the more times those topics touch our youth, the better set up they'll be for their future. The better set up our province will be for its future. I am truly honored to stand before you tonight as the incoming chair of the Board of Directors of Junior Achievement. And you all know I wouldn't be doing my job as chair if I didn't ask for your support. Please join me in making those aha moments possible. You have a pledge card in front of you, and you probably came tonight with a dollar figure in mind. I would ask each of you to stretch that dollar figure as much as you're able. Would you consider doubling your pledge? If you are planning a one-time pledge, would you consider making it a multi-year pledge? Our goal this evening, with your help, is to provide program funding for 30,000 students for the 2016-17 school year. That amounts to $60 per student. Some of you here can support one student, some of you 10, and some of you 1,000. I know you will be as generous as you're able. Our Northern Alberta youth deserve it, and they are depending on you. Thank you for your generosity and your consideration of this request. I was 18 years old when I stood up on this stage the first time as the most valuable achiever in Canada. It took me 18 more years to get up here again as the incoming chair of the Board of Directors. 18 years from now, I plan to be up here again as an inductee to the Alberta Business Hall of Fame. You might say that goal is a little bit lofty, but JA set me to set lofty goals and then go out and achieve them. Thank you.